Welcome back to GrowthTV. I'm Carolyn Vallejo, and I'm here today with Chris McGrath, head of middle market P&C insurance at QBE North America. Now, QBE recently released its mid-sized company risk report, and we're going to dig a little bit into the findings of that report. So let's start, Chris, by first talking about what the report tells us about the current business environment.
Yeah, it tells us quite a lot, Carolyn, with the main headline being that the level of concern measured for a wide range of risks rose significantly in the past year, up around 18% on average. In fact, it was significantly higher this year than in 2020 when the pandemic and sociopolitical unrest were seemingly at their heights. And when the surveyed executives were asked to rank their top concerns, financial, digital, and business interruption risks led the pack, which is consistent year to year. However, pandemic risk waned, while organizational concerns rose to the number 4 spot, largely on the back of concerns over the recognition of M&A deal benefits, the ability to attract and retain talent, and challenges related to remote work. Risks related to climate change, litigation, and natural disasters, they ranked as the least concerning, but even so, the percentage of executives who gave them a high level of concern was still around 60%.
So it definitely sounds like a lot of heightened anxiety in the business environment today. Why do you think that is, and why now?
Yes, despite being at the tail end of the pandemic, hopefully, there does seem to be more anxiety. And when we talk to our customers, we hear about a variety of factors. Many of them are follow-on effects of the pandemic, like continued labor shortages, the competition for talent, supply chain issues, hybrid work, et cetera. And when this is coupled with cyclical geopolitical and economic issues that typically follow large-scale events, which the pandemic obviously was, we see a heightened level of concern over things like pending recessions and increased inflation, and the impact those can have on both their businesses and their suppliers' businesses. All of this is underpinned by the secular trend around digitization, which exposes companies to greater cyber risks and raises fear around data and intellectual property theft. So that adds up to quite a lot for companies to be thinking about.
Now let's look at the data for a little bit. Can you tell me a little bit about some specific findings that you would like to point out that you find particularly interesting?
Yeah, well, you would hope that a heightened level of concern would lead to taking steps to be better prepared. But the research actually indicates that that hasn't happened yet. For each of the macro risks that we measure, we ask the executives if they have a risk mitigation plan in place to confront the risk, and the percentage that stated they had a plan stayed consistent year to year, which is good. Unfortunately, however, for most of these macro risks, fewer than half of those surveyed reported having mitigation plans in place. And as we dive into the numbers, it gets even more interesting. For example, if we compare the percentage of executives that had a high level of concern over any given risk with the percentage of those that had a mitigation plan, the gap was often 20 points or more. For instance, a little over 60% of those surveyed had a high level of concern over litigation risk, but only 40% had a plan in place. And we saw gaps like that nearly across the board. With financial risk actually being the sole exception, where the percentage of those that were concerned and those that had a mitigation plan in place were nearly identical. So what this suggests to me is that mid-sized companies struggle with the capacity, the time, and the expertise needed to put a mitigation plan and strategy in place.
Yeah, that's a really troubling finding, but for the mid-sized businesses that are interested in taking action, being a little bit more proactive than it sounds like they have been, what are some of the first steps that they can take? I mean, what are some pieces of advice you could give these businesses?
Yeah, I'd say the good news is that mid-sized companies don't have to go it alone in terms of risk management. By choosing the right insurance broker and carrier to work with, they can afford themselves of a lot of help, not only as it relates to coverage, but also with customized advice and solutions. And that customization is critical to our customers, as risks vary greatly across industry and customer type. So it's important to work with an insurer that understands those nuances. Here at QBE, we focus only on around 8 to 10 industries, such as manufacturing and real estate, hospitality, just given the disparity of risks that need to be addressed. In manufacturing, for example, products related liabilities, workers' compensation, those are usually the top concerns. Whereas in the hospitality business, you might be more concerned about slips, trips, and falls occurring at your establishment. And that's where a good loss control team comes into play as well, right? But not at the time of claim, right? It really should be done pre-bind so that we can try to avoid those losses from happening in the first place. Another area of customization with loss control, it seemingly comes in the straightforward things as well, right? We were recently engaged with a new customer, have buildings full of computer servers that need to be protected, and fire was a serious risk. And traditional warehouse sprinklers would not be the right solution, right? Servers don't swim. So ensuring there was adequate knowledge around non-water-based fire suppression was a must, right? So executives really should be looking beyond price when choosing their risk management partners, right? As these customized services and this area of expertise is critical to the growth of their businesses.
So it sounds like you're saying each business might have their own nuances in terms of what their risks are. So they need to find a partner to make sure that they don't have to go it alone.
You said it much better than I did. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Chris, for joining us today.
I appreciate it, Carolyn. Thank you very much.
Thanks.